Wait, what about weird?
Hi, I'm Echo.
And I'm Elena.
And this is our podcast, What About Weird, where we talk about anything weird from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. And today we're going to be talking about megafauna. So the term megafauna is used to describe very large animals. Some modern-day megafauna include elephants, ostriches, the giant squid, and any other...
Mama. Sorry, I saw the opportunity and I had to take it.
Oh God, I wasn't expecting that. Well, you know, if that includes any other species that may be deemed far larger than other animals in their category, could be true. For this episode, we are going to focus on ancient megafauna or megafauna that is extinct now. So first, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview about the geologic timescale, because I thought I knew the geologic timescale, and then I looked it up, and I did not. It is way more complicated than I thought it was. So,
Animals was born, and then they died. The end of episode.
Oh, God. There are different eras, and so a lot of people know... Like, you'll hear about, like, the Paleozoic era or the Mesozoic era and all of that. Eras then have periods within the era. So, for example, the ones that people might be most familiar with are in the Mesozoic era. There's the Triassic period, the Jurassic period, and the Cretaceous period, which is when dinosaurs existed. And, of course, we all know this because of Jurassic Park, and that's the only reason anybody knows this. Prove me wrong. I don't know if it's Cenozoic. I should have looked up how to pronounce it, but that's the era that we're going to be focusing in. It's anywhere from basically 50 million years ago to what we would consider, I guess, kind of modern times in terms of the geologic time scale. So 0 millions of years ago.
0 millions. At some point in the past, this was a thing. We don't know when. We don't care.
So, and then within this era, there are two periods. The Tertiary period, which is the rise of the mammals, and the Quaternary period, which is the rise of man. And then in these periods, there's epochs. We are going to be focusing on what is the tail end of the Tertiary period, starting in the Oligocene and the Miocene, and then ending talking about kind of mid to late Quaternary period and the Pliocene and Pleistocene. And I'm going to try not to get those mixed up because Pliocene and Pleistocene are a little too similar for me, so...
You might need a visual for this, but...
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll just be confused. It'll be funnier that way.
Anyone listening, go back, write it all down. It'll get confusing later if you don't. Maybe start including links.
Show notes?
Yeah, do some show notes of some sort. That would be good.
The Google Docs to the show notes maybe might be a way to go.
Mm-hmm. It's the Australian Environmental Education.com has really good imagery of it, so you can kind of understand the megafauna that we're talking about, what epochs they're going to show up in, because we're really going to be referring to, like, the epochs in which they appeared.
Okay, I have a visual on this now.
Awesome.
This will make, my brain does visuals. This will help.
I couldn't figure it out until I looked at the visual either, so recommend pulling that up for sure.
The little drawings on this are so cute.
I know, I love them.
They're all so cute.
Very good job, Australian Education. We like your website very much.
I would let those dinos eat my face. They're cute.
Okay.
Continue.
Scientists believe due to the glacial conditions from the Ice Age, larger body types were favored for heat retention during this period. Glacial conditions also led to more grassland and tundra environment, which may have been good for large herbivores to thrive. So a larger body size also meant that they were preyed upon less. And these factors are why we think megafauna really thrived during this time. So the first megafauna that I'm going to bring up is the megalodon, which of course is in a lot of horror movies and lore, and there's just everyone seems to be really interested in them because they are the biggest shark to ever exist.
Somewhere my mom has a megalodon tooth.
Oh, that's really cool.
Just like floating around somewhere in the house casually, as one does.
Well, fun fact, megalodon fossils are actually the state fossil of North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I know
a lot of the other state symbols.
Yeah.
Because elementary school ingrained it into my skull. And I actually won a little competition at the state fair this past year because I remembered all that. But
whoa,
that was not one of those things that was in it.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because they were found here so frequently. I would assume so,
Maybe.
Especially being a coastal region that's relatively warm. But
maybe.
Yeah, people like them here in North Carolina.
With a lot of the geology is like really old, like the Appalachians are the oldest, like the oldest mountain range in the world, or one of them. Mm-hmm. So it's just old geology, which might be part of it. I don't know.
That makes sense to me. So the megalodon is an extinct type of mackerel shark that existed in the early Miocene until the early Pliocene. So remember, it's the Miocene, the Pliocene, and then the Pleistocene. I really hope I'm saying all these right, but I am not a paleontologist or a geologist, so do not come at me.
And here I was thinking you were.
So they're part of an extinct family called the Odontidae, which diverged from the great white shark during the early Cretaceous period, which is about 100 million years ago. So we only have fragmented remains of the megalodon, but from this fraction, researchers estimate the length is up to 20.3 meters, which is 67 feet. Although the average length is said to be about 10.5 meters, which is 34 feet, which is still
describe that to me in American.
Insane.
What thing is close to that in scale? How many boulders the size of other boulders is it?
Let's see, school bus size.
Is it bigger than a house?
Okay, so 34 feet is approximately the size of a school bus. So that's like as long as a school bus is.
That's actually smaller than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean for the average size. The ones that are 67 feet are like almost 2 school buses.
Yeah.
So those ones are definitely massive. So the fossil records indicate that it had what's called a cosmopolitan distribution, which means
in New York.
Which means it's seen in most parts of the ocean, so it must have been highly adaptable to different climates and environmental conditions. It probably targeted large prey such as whales, seals, and sea turtles, and they believe the juveniles inhabited warm coastal waters. They believe the juveniles inhabited warm coastal waters and fed on fish and small whales. And then it is believed that the bite force of the megalodon is so strong that it used its jaws to break through the chest cavity and puncture the heart and lungs of its prey. And the reason we know this is because they found the remains of about a 30-foot-long Miocene baleen whale, and they found the bite marks from the megalodon on this ancient whale. And from that, we're kind of able to gather, instead of a lot of other species will attack the soft underbelly, whereas the bite force of the megalodon is so strong that it just can bite into you, get like straight to the heart.
Oh my.
Yeah, a little scary. Megalodon teeth have been excavated and used actually since ancient times, so they were a valued artifact amongst the pre-Columbian cultures in the Americas for their large sizes and the serrated blades at the edge of the teeth. So a lot of the time they would use them for projectile points, knives, jewelry, and even funeral accessories. Megalodon teeth can measure over 180 millimeters, which is 7.1 inches. And another fun thing is actually Pliny the Elder in AD 73 in his volume Historia Naturalis described them as resembling petrified human tongues. And Roman folklorists...
I don't see that at all.
I don't get it either, but
What kind of tongues is he looking at?
Pliny the Elder was interesting.
He's slightly unhinged. I think we need to do an episode on him.
God, there would be so much because he had theories about everything. Roman folklorists believed that they had fallen from the sky during lunar eclipses.
As teeth are wont to do.
And their name for them was actually tongue stones. So I guess they thought that it looked like tongues too.
I wonder if they were finding ones that were more rounded off.
I don't know.
But, because the one that my mom has is pointy.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of them are because, they were using them as weapons for, projectile points and knives and stuff. So obviously they were sharp. I don't know why they thought they looked like tongues, but they did.
I don't know. We also used to call tomatoes love apples, so what do you want?
13th to 16th century literature said that megalodon teeth possessed supernatural properties that cured a really wide variety of poisons. So they would use megalodon teeth for medieval and Renaissance nobility. And they would basically just use them as protective amulets or even tableware, which they thought would detoxify poisoned liquids.
What are they doing? Throwing it in a glass of mead? Kolunk, drink this.
Well, actually, by the 16th century, they were directly consuming the teeth.
I guess it's better than Victorians and mummies.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you're going to consume some shark teeth, whatever, but... the fact that Victorian people ever consumed just the mummified people's dead bodies was extremely concerning. So, and no one believed that they were shark teeth. For a really long time, they completely dismissed the idea because they were often found far from any sea, just in the middle of land masses. But we, of course, know that much of the Earth was once ocean, and started comparing them to other shark teeth by around the 1660s, and then it kind of became common knowledge that this was a really large shark species that's now extinct. It was likely due to the abundance of large prey, the need for a slower metabolic rate, and the need to swim at a certain speed, why they ended up so large. In 2022, it was actually suggested that the large size was instead due to what's called intrauterine cannibalism, where the larger fetus will eat a smaller fetus, resulting in progressively larger and larger fetuses, requiring the mother to attain even greater size as well as caloric requirements. And then in order for the male sharks to then mate with the female shark, they also had to evolve to be way larger.
That's metal as hell, I'm just saying.
So, like modern sharks, it is thought that the megalodon found warm coastal regions with an abundance of prey and protection from predators to birth their young, and it's actually thought that this could be a reason they became extinct. So, the Earth experienced a number of changes during the time period the megalodon existed, which affected a lot of marine life at the time, primarily right before the Pliocene and Pleistocene epochs. There was a large cooling, also what we'd probably call as the Ice Age, that led to cooler open temperatures and glacier formation. So fossil evidence shows that the megalodon moved to warmer waters, but with fewer places to birth their young, their numbers decreased. And then during this period of cooling, their main prey, the baleen whale, likely also got larger in order to maintain heat in the cooler waters, and it became harder for the megalodon to feast on the prey, thus leading to their eventual extinction. So this climate cooling led to a lot of animal species actually growing larger over time, and maybe why the other two megafauna that I'll be discussing ended up coming into existence during the Pliocene and the Pleistocene period. The megalodon is dead, and we've reached the late Pliocene, early Pleistocene epochs, where we started to see many animals evolving to get bigger and bigger. So there were hundreds of megafauna species during the Pleistocene era, including, we know of the mammoths, the saber-toothed tigers, woolly rhinoceroses.
Wait, woolly rhino? I was not aware of this.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be talking about those ones
think
today.
That's just a Picasso buffalo. I've never heard of the woolly rhinoceros.
Well, now...
You gonna tell me about them or no?
No, those are like the most commonplace ones. And I know Megalodon is obviously really popular too, but I couldn't help but talk about that one, especially because it kind of...
Like it works into the others. Mm-hmm. And now I'm gonna go research woolly rhinoceroses.
We're absolutely...
Rhinoceroses.
What is the plural of it? It's just rhinoceroses, right? That is the plural? Really, rhinocerite? That sounds not right.
Rhinoceroses.
Oh, gosh.
No, now.
I do want to at some point do a secondary episode about megafauna because there were like hundreds of megafauna species out there. So, and they're all very interesting. Obviously, some of them still exist today, but I enjoy talking about the ones that have become extinct. All right, I'm going to talk about the Megatherium, which we know as the giant sloth. It was a type of ground sloth native to South America with a size of up to 6 meters, which is 20 feet. And it weighed up to 4,000 kilograms, which is 8,800 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's about the size of a large species of elephant today.
Wow. Yeah, I have a picture from the Science Museum I might post along with this episode, if I remember when we post it, of a skeleton of one of these guys.
Awesome.
I remember.
Yeah, because they're found everywhere in the Americas, so... They're actually pretty abundant, especially because there were actually so many types of them. These giant sloths existed in the early Pliocene and the late Pleistocene. The first one was discovered in 1787 by Manuel de Torres on the bank of a river in what's now northern Argentina. So the bones were collected and sent to the National Museum of Natural Sciences in Spain. And in 1796, a scientific description of the skeleton was published and sent to Paris, France, where a French anatomist and paleontologist, George, I want to say Cuvier? I don't know. It looks like Cuvier, but I want to say he's French, so it's probably Cuvier. Cuvier. I don't know. I'm not French. But he actually correctly named the species Megatherium americanum, which means great American beast. And it actually became the first fossil mammal to be identified with both a genus and a species name. So he came to the conclusion that the species was related to the modern sloth using what's called comparative anatomy, which is the study of similarities and differences in the anatomy of different species. And he kind of came to that conclusion because the skulls from the giant sloth are relatively similar to what we see in sloths now today.
It's like, this looks like a sloth skeleton, but big. I'm going to call it a big sloth.
Yeah, pretty much.
A bit of creativity.
So other skeletal remains of the giant sloth have been found in Bolivia, Chile, Peru, just a lot of places in South America. But there are other places in the world where they've found giant sloths. So mitochondrial DNA sequences obtained from the giant sloth indicates that the three-toed sloth is likely its closest living relative. And they believe that it fed on foliage, trees, shrubs, using its what's called a prehensile upper lip, which is basically, prehensile just means an appendage or an organ that's found on a vertebrate animal that has the ability to grasp or hold. So
like horse lips?
Yeah, pretty much. The one that it probably would have been the most similar to is what we see on a black rhinoceros today. And despite their size, it was also thought that they were commonly using the bipedal posture to help them reach into trees or to possibly use its front claws for defense. The teeth of the giant sloth are proportionally much larger than what we see in sloths today and were self-sharpening like you would see in a modern-day rodent on their incisors. So the limbs of the Megatherium were long and thin, with 3 of its middle fingers on each hand containing claws up to 17 inches long. And there's actually evidence they found a kill site in Argentina where a giant sloth was found slaughtered at the edge of a swamp. At this site, they found several stone tools, including a projectile point. And there have also been discoveries of the giant sloth bones with clear cut marks on them, suggesting that early humans may have actually hunted the giant sloth. Because we also have to remember that in the Pleistocene or the Pleistocene period is when humans start coming along. So it's really crazy to think that these animals that I'm describing to you, we had to deal with them as early humans.
Timeline stuff is so wild.
Isn't it? To think about that there was just saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths and stuff roaming around with people on the earth. What a time to be alive.
I mean, there's some pretty crazy animals that 100 years from now are probably going to be extinct, and people are going to be like, can you believe that these animals saw the invention of the iPhone?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so true, especially with climate change happening now. We're definitely looking at a lot of species going extinct, and then probably even a couple hundred years in the future, humans at that time are going to think, wow, do you remember when they had all these like different bird species or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, even with just the invention of photography, like the Carolina parakeet, I know went extinct, but it was around long enough to be able to be photographed.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the same with the dodo, or am I totally off on that?
I thought there was a picture of a dodo, but
I know there's pictures of dodo taxidermy, but
right.
Yeah, point being that timeline stuff is super interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know if they were just picture of the taxidermy dodo, or if it was just drawn, or if it actually existed around that time. But
the giant sloths and stuff and giant animals makes you wonder. Some of these that we hunted like we humans hunted.
Mm-hmm.
What dangers might they have posed to people?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't think of a sloth as being dangerous, but also if it's really big, it could still, and if we're hunting it, it could still do damage to us, you know?
Yeah, and I was wondering if it was similar with the woolly mammoths, if we were hunting them for supplies and food, or if we were genuinely scared of them. Because, I mean, while they had these massive claws for defense, they were only eating foliage and being
sloths,
chill.
Not the mammoths.
Yeah. Woolly mammoth with giant claws.
Rawr.
So in the 2000s, several large caves were uncovered with massive claw marks all over the walls. The claw marks indicated that these caves were created by several creatures digging out the ground to create what's called a paleo burrow. And this possibly occurred over several generations that they were working on these caves. Some of these burrows even measure up to 3,000 feet long and are about 4 to 5 feet in diameter. So many paleontologists believe these burrows were dug out by the giant ground sloth, though it may not have been this specific ground sloth, the Megatherium. It may have instead been a species of Mylodon, which is another extinct genus of ground sloth found in South America, which is said to measure 3 to 4 meters long, which is about 13 feet, and could weigh up to 2 tons, they said in some cases. They were hefty. The interesting
body shame the sloths.
the extinct giant sloths.
Yeah, they have feelings too.
So the interesting thing about this is that even though the Mylodon and Megatherium are both types of ground sloth and exhibit a lot of the same features, they're 2 completely different species. So molecular studies estimate that the Mylodon and the modern 2-fingered sloth diverged around 29 million years ago, whereas the Megatherium split from other lineages around 31 million years ago. In fact, late Pleistocene sloths include about 27 genera and 4 families. So pinpointing which giant sloths are related, which caused the tunnels, etc., is actually a little difficult. And I just want everyone to remember, like, the taxonomic classification of living things is, it's kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So we're looking at, like, they were probably part of the same order, but completely different family, completely different genus, completely different species. So they're like distantly related, even though they're all giant ground sloths and they all have like these similar characteristics. And then the last megafauna I'm going to talk about, I tried to diversify it by doing basically a fish and then a mammal, and now I'm going to bring up a really large megafauna bird. So the Haas eagle is an extinct species of eagle.
From Appalachia? Haas? The Haas eagle?
Not quite. I think it's Haas. It could be Haas. It's Haasts. How would you pronounce that? Haas? Probably,
Haast.
right? Haas.
Haste? Haas? I could see a
With
Haas.
2 A's? I don't know.
Haas!
His name is Julian von Haast, so I would assume it's Haast.
I thought this animal's name was Julian. I've called this eagle Julian. That is his name now. From now on, I shall be referring to him as Julian the Eagle.
Okay.
So tell me more about Julian the Eagle.
So the Haas eagle is an extinct species of eagle that lived on the South Island of New Zealand. And in the Maori culture, it is known as I'm going to butcher this name because I do not now know how to say Maori words, but I want to say it's the Po'akai. So the Haas eagle was first scientifically described by Julius von Haast in 1871 from remains discovered by taxidermist Frederick Richardson Fuller in what used to be a marsh in the New Zealand area. It is the largest eagle known to have existed with an estimated weight of 10 to 18 kilograms, which is 22 to 40 pounds, with a wingspan of up to 3 meters, which is 10 feet. So its massive size is explained as an evolutionary response to the size of its prey, the flightless moa, which is a type of flightless bird. It kind of looks like an ostrich, like a really big kind of ostrich thing.
Oh, are these the ones with the weird ass like ridges on their foreheads or something? Or am I thinking about?
I know which one you're thinking of.
Yeah, it's like bluish.
Yeah, some of the images of the moa are depicted with like blue feet and faces though, so they're probably maybe very distantly related to some extent. But the moa could weigh up to 200 kilograms, which is 440 pounds. So that's why the Haas eagle had to evolve to get a lot bigger. It's said to have diverged from the smaller types of eagles 1.8 million to 700,000 years ago, which is very fast in terms of the geologic timescale. So if this estimate is correct, its increase in weight by 10 to 15 times would represent the largest, fastest evolutionary increase in average weight of any known vertebrate species. So the primary food source for the Haas eagle is the moa, which could have been up to 15 times the weight of the eagle. So its large beak also could have been used, well, because the moa is so much bigger, the Haas eagle developed to have a really large beak that could be used to rip into the internal organs of its prey, and then death actually would have just been caused by blood loss. Due to the absence of pretty much any other large predators, the Haas eagle could easily have spent days feasting on the body of a moa. It didn't really have to worry about other predators kind of getting in there and eating the moa. And birds actually occupied or dominated all of the major niches in New Zealand animal ecology. So there were actually no placental mammals on the islands of New Zealand at the time that we know for, except for like 3 types of bat. That's why it was pretty much the moa versus the Haas eagle. Like the Haas eagle was the large prey, the moa was the large predator, the moa was the large prey.
Interesting. I heard an interesting thing on some podcast or another, I don't know what it was, where they were talking about the thunderbird and theories that maybe it like is a surviving one of these, I believe. Like how people theorize that the Loch Ness Monster is some sort of relic dinosaur, or like Bigfoot is a relic, like missing link hominoid. Which I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to bring that you were talking about this when I just listened to an episode about a similar thing the other day.
Well,
But
and what's interesting is, so these were, I mean, the Haast eagle existed when humans existed, and they're ingrained into Maori culture for, like, a large extent of the Maori culture when it first started. So you have to think, we see all of these other cave drawings and
stories get around.
Yeah.
Find ways to get around and evolve.
And a lot of them we think are legends and religious experiences or just stories, but we have to consider that there are probably so many species from back then that we don't know about.
Fossil records are so scant.
Yeah, we either haven't found the fossils or they just didn't fossilize for whatever reason. I'm sure there are so many species that happened to. So in Maori mythology, the Po'akai, which we think refers to the Haast eagle, would actually prey and kill humans along with moa. Maori cave art depicts the large bird with a black and white body, a pale head, and wings of yellow and green with a red crest. The Maori rock art drawings can actually still be found in modern-day South Canterbury in New Zealand. Humans eventually hunted the moa to extinction, and without its primary food source, the Haast eagle wasn't far behind. And so you might be wondering, so if megafauna were incredibly diverse and abundant during the same times that humans were around, why do we not see many of them today? Why are most of them extinct? We think it's because in the late Pleistocene was a time of global heating. It was the end of the Ice Age where this was a good environment for megafauna. Environments changed rapidly, but the evolution of many of the megafauna couldn't keep up. Though climate change was probably the main factor for many megafauna extinctions, there's also abundant evidence to suggest that early humans may have hunted many of the large species, possibly to their extinction. That's what happened. Climate change and humans. Oh, how the times haven't changed.
What? They haven't? Here I was thinking it was Big Pharma doing all of this.
All right, and that's all I have on megafauna. Do you have any questions or anything? Not that I would know, but...
Name every single species of megafauna out there.
that we've ever found.
So you mentioned there are some modern megafauna, like obviously elephants and stuff like that, but what is the... Because we know with the prehistoric ones, you know, obviously it's huge, so that classifies it as a megafauna, but how small would it still be to, like, classify as megafauna?
So...
Like would a buffalo count as megafauna? Or no, or like, obviously like a whale would, but...
Right. So it's kind of debated, actually, because...
Or is it like the type of animal you'd look at and go, oh shit, that's big.
So the general...
That classifies megafauna?
The general consensus is that it has to be at least 44 kilograms, which is about 97 pounds. But some scientists are like, actually it can be like as low as like 10 kilograms. Because really what we're looking at is the animal way larger than others of its type. So obviously like elephants are included because it's really large for a mammal. Ostriches are included because it's really large for a bird. But if there's a giant beaver or a giant form of fish or something that's not actually that big comparatively, but is still really big compared to the rest of the other species of its kind, then we might still consider that to be megafauna.
So, like, would a one of those ocean sunfish be considered megafauna?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Always remember to ask about the weird. Bye for now.